Right now we have Dr. Brian Walker, who is the leader of the Western Australian branch of the Legalised Cannabis Party. Brian was elected to the Western Australian Parliament in 2021 and faced the electors again in 2025, and they said, sure, come back. So elected again last year. And exactly, worth a round of applause, absolutely, well done. Brian is a medical doctor. His bio is, I won't, we're short of time, but I'll just say really quickly. His bio is one of those most remarkable things about living in 15 different, no, not quite, living in lots of different countries, being a medical doctor in many different countries. Anyway, now a member of Parliament and a leader of the movement for the legalisation of cannabis, speaking to us today in particular around the heresies on the medical use and medical applications of cannabis. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks all at Nimbin as well, and thank you as well, because you are the important people. I want to also acknowledge Dr. Alex Worak. I mean, I love listening to what he says, and this is going to carry on, I think, to some degree, because there's such a lot of information and such a lot we need to absorb. And what I will be speaking about is really only one small part of a larger picture. And what we're needing is a large picture. Because, as Alex was saying earlier, we need to speak to the politicians. Let me into your secret. When you write to a politician, it gets thrown in the bin. No one really reads it unless you've got lots of these individual, not copy and pasted, and if you're making a lot of noise. What's needed is irritation to the politician, best done in the form of protest, when you're outside Parliament shouting with banners, marching through the streets and making a loud noise. They don't listen to science, they don't listen to reason, they care nothing for facts. In fact, truth matters absolutely nothing in politics. Not a thing. So when we're trying to put scientific truth forward, it doesn't get heard. Even the financial information we put forward a little while back, the economics of legalizing recreational cannabis, and very conservatively measured, $1.25 billion over the 4-year forward estimates. You can do a few things with $1.25 billion. And for one day, people listened, and then they forgot it because the narrative was controlled. And what we are actually seeing just now is the effects of being controlled within a system, the false dichotomy we've got, the fact that there's a system structure there which is actually encouraging us to fight each other, left and right, who's right, who's wrong, which footy team is the best. It's all profit-making for the system, and we're engaged. When we're taking part in that false dichotomy, we're actually helping the system beat us down. So what we need to do is to actually let people to wake up. Now, cannabis is a fantastic way of using that as a symbol for every which way in which the government has lied to us. We heard from Alex recently about how the whole process took a long time. The amount of lies, the amount of misinformation, disinformation, calling cannabis a narcotic, for example. Do you know that they've actually taken the word narcotic and they've transformed it with politicians and lawyers to mean a controlled substance, not a narcotic? And that's why they can hang people in Singapore, because they've actually transgressed the Narcotics Act, which kills people, of course. Well, the only people being killed by cannabis is the Singaporean government. And so here I'm going to talk to you about medical heresy, because you see, when people ask me what's going to happen with legalization of cannabis in the future, what's going to happen with freeing us from this yoke of tyranny, it's not just cannabis, is it? There's so many ways we're having enforced compliance on us. I'll mention COVID briefly, but we've got also the random drug testing, the random breath testing. Random? Hell, no. Is it actually compatible with human rights? No, it's not. Do we comply with it? Well, yes, we do, don't we? We're kind of forced into it. And the components we have in the cannabis industry, cannabis sativa, is actually threefold. One is the cannabis, the industrial cannabis for hemp. The ADF making bomb-proof covers for their motors with hemp and carbon fibers. Bomb-proof. We could send this into space. We can make beautiful cottonized hemp into shirts costing $200. We could do that but we can't because we're frightened of THC. We've got the medical cannabis, which is legalized. Well, yeah, it's not really. It's legally available, but try driving with it. It's available legally, but at what price? Is it on the PBS? No, it's not. have this prescribed by a doctor and then go to hospital with whatever and continue using it in the hospital. No, you can't. If you're in aged care and you go into an aged care home, it's difficult, very difficult, to get them to accept cannabis to treat the patients who've been on this for some time. And then, of course, we've got the recreational market, okay, which is really actually the symbol, if you like, of why they're actually preventing us from actually having cannabis. Because they think, oh, all the lies come up. It causes psychosis. Well, actually, tobacco and alcohol is worse. Oh, it can actually, it makes people fall asleep. Let's try a sativa, for example. That'll help you do the ironing. I mean, there's so many things that they're just telling the untruth. My activities as a politician, and here I have to say, I'm at the intersection of so many areas. I'm a medical practitioner still. I have a part-time practice. I'm prescribing cannabis. I'm a legislator, although I don't make any laws. I simply review them in the upper house. But I'm at that coalface of the legislative side. When it comes to the industrial side, I'm visiting, say, the Margaret River Hemp Company. Take a visit, by all means. They're wonderful people. And how they're preparing to make houses, $100,000 for a house, fully set up. We could transform our lack of housing just with hemp. So I'm at this interface. As a state politician, I'm putting out content with a federal content. I'm actually involved at international level. We're talking at the Global Cannabis Regulating Summit. I couldn't attend this year, but I was before and I will be again. So international regulation around freeing cannabis from the lies that are being woven around it. But I gave a speech, I gave a lecture, if you like, at United in Compassion, aimed at doctors, prescribers, and patients. And I really wanted to outline what's actually going on, because if doctors aren't prescribing medicinal cannabis, then we have a problem, because I think it was Ian McGregor from the, which institute was that? Not Pennington, Lambert's, who said legalizing medicinal cannabis is actually legalizing cannabis by stealth. The amount of prescriptions we're putting out there are rising. They're rising really well. And what's happening is that the institutions are trying to draw us back. They're trying to return to a prohibitive approach. The TGA right now is actually working on that. And the information that they got from their skewed request for data, they put out the information as the research results from that, and they lied. They took their own poorly constructed statistics and they lied about the results. And now they're going to change the regulations at some time in the future, we think. We.
Look at your website for the real data.
The real data is on my website, yes, as pointed out, yes. And what we need to do as people, we need to stand up, all of us. But my task in this case was speaking to doctors, because if we're not training doctors to prescribe, then we're actually undercutting ourselves. And so I took this lecture to United in Compassion. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with medical facts. But how many people have been to a doctor and they've actually come with a symptom and they've got a prescription and they've walked away and said, but I'm still not well. I think all of us have experienced that. And the problem is that we come in with a symptom, and in our 6-minute medicine or 15-minute medicine, here's a symptom, here's a fix, next patient, please. So wellness is not taught at medical levels at all. Diagnosis is fine. I've now diagnosed lung cancer for you. Here's the treatment there. Next patient, please. In you come. And it's reflected also in our politics, because when we look at the budget, for example, about how much money we're spending on our health system, or our sickness systems, I call it, we can discuss what they've shown us. What they haven't shown us is the figures they haven't mentioned, the activities they haven't measured, the ones that we can't access because we don't know what they've not reported. How can you see the absent if you don't know what the absent is missing? And one great marker for this is, of course, the issues here regarding ambulance ramping. I don't know what it's like here, but in WA we've got huge problems with ambulance ramping. I'm sure it's here as well. And people are looking at this, oh, we must fix the ambulance ramping, as if that was the problem. It's not. It's not. Any health professional who is at all involved in this will tell you that's not the problem. The problem is, first of all, too many patients are coming to ED. Secondly, there's not enough primary care doctors looking after the people in primary care. And thirdly, the beds are being blocked that way, so we can't shift people out of the ED into a bed. And when I asked, I queried the North Metropolitan Health Board the other day there about the bed blockages. And they said, yes, what we're doing is we're training people how to recognize dementia and treat dementia in these places so that we can diagnose and manage better. Yes, I said, but you're keeping them in a hospital bed for 6 months, you're not moving them out. Are you planning any builds to take up the people, elderly patients with dementia? And they said, oh, they said, you know what they said? They said, oh, that's a federal funding issue, we can't speak to that. Oh, we're screwed. Anyhow, so one of the things I say in politics quite a lot when I'm speaking in the chamber is we need to deal with the upstream problem. I'll define this. I have this upstream, downstream idea, which I've mercilessly stolen from John McGregor with his wonderful book, The Mechanics of Changing the World. I highly recommend you get that. Anyhow, imagine, if you will, a village by a river, and you take your water from that river for the washing, cooking, cleaning, and any processing you might have. Fine. Imagine it's dirty water, it's filthy water. You need to sanitize that. You need to filter it. You need to redirect it. You need to treat it. So we're spending all of our efforts in the village at fixing this dirty water. What we should be doing is going upstream and finding the herd of cows and take them out of the water. So pooing and peeing for cows in the water is not a good way of looking after your water downstream. The upstream, downstream issues. I was in, was it Wednesday, Thursday? Yeah, Thursday. I was in committee, and we were questioning a number of organizations, and all of the questions were downstream questions, nothing at all about upstream. How could we fix this? Now, in a doctor's point of view, you come with a headache. Fine, got a headache, here's a pill, next patient, please. We've all been there. Does anyone ask the question, I wonder why you've got a headache? When I say the same question when I'm teaching medical students, someone comes with a sore throat, what are you going to do? And in China, here's penicillin, Panadol, and some vitamins. Next patient, 3 minutes. 3 minutes. So I questioned, I said, do you ever wonder why they come? Now, bearing in mind, this was in Hong Kong, so a different situation. So someone comes and they say, well, actually, I've got a sore throat. Why have you come with that sore throat now? Is it because your best friend died of leukemia and it started with a sore throat? And you wonder if you might have the same problem? Is it because you're traveling to Singapore on $1 billion business trip and you're presenting tomorrow and you're hoping your voice is not going to give out? Is it because you're simply frightened that you've got so many sore throats you need a tonsillectomy? You need to find out why you're here, what's underlying all this. And in politics, it's much the same thing. The housing, for example, we're going to pay for the housing, or the problems with the housing. It's very expensive, you can't afford it, so sleep on the streets. Giving every unhomed person a home is actually cheaper than treating the effects of housing. So why aren't we doing it? Well, it's a bloody good question, no answer. No, that's George Monbiot. I love that book. Yes, that gave me nightmares, neoliberalism. You're quite right. Now, in the medical terms, what I'm going to talk about now is a tetrad for symptoms. So someone comes to me and they've got ADHD and they're saying, I want some medical cannabis for the ADHD. Now, first of all, this is entirely unproven. My experience is very different. I'm at the stage now when I say you're using cannabis, any kind of cannabis, and your thoughts become clearer, easier to manage. You have ADHD until proved otherwise. I can back that up with a number of patients who've responded well to that, but it's not scientific evidence yet. So they come in, and then I begin to ask a few questions. Tell me more. It's not about here, take some stimulants and next patient, please. It's really, okay, that's what else is going on. Very often they say, oh yeah, I've got trouble looking after my sibling who's got a bit of autism. And I said, well, tell me about your autism. So what? And so what symptoms do you have there? And so it comes out, well, actually, there is you're a bit on the spectrum yourself, are you not? Tell me about your flexible joints. They said, what? Well, are you very bendy? Well, yeah, I am. Oh, it's dislocated, so the knees have gone out, my shoulders. And I'm saying, so you've got hypermobility syndrome. Tell me. And I'll say, and you can ask the question yourselves. When you get up quickly, do you feel dizzy? Do you find yourself sweating when you shouldn't sweat, or not sweating when you should? How about if you feel pale, that your face is as white as a sheet? What about abdominal pains every now and then, a bit altered bowel motion, dry skin? What we're looking at here is the syndrome of dysautonomia. And all these four things come together in one. Not everyone, of course, but when you see the one and you ask for the other and the third appears, we're now getting here a picture. Why is that important? Well, because every single one of these symptoms could, doesn't have to, but could relate to a deficiency at the endocannabinoid system level. Now, I now take this information and go with that to a colleague of mine who can diagnose POTS syndrome, can diagnose autistic spectrum disorder or similar things, and I tell them about the endocannabinoid system. They haven't got the faintest clue. So what I see is patients coming to me with stimulant therapy, with antidepressant, with medication to help them sleep, clonidine, which is actually a blood pressure tablet. And they may be taking a medication to calm their depression, which is a natural response to the ADHD and the anger they have with that. They may be diagnosed as bipolar disorder because they've ticked the boxes and they've ticked the wrong box, which is the slight definition between severe ADHD and bipolar disease. So they'd falsely diagnosed as bipolar. And they've got the autistic spectrum medication, so they're being sedated a little bit. Are they feeling any better? No, they're not. And then with the hypermobility, they've got pain, so they're getting anti-inflammatories, which might irritate the stomach, or maybe taking opioids, because we can give that quite freely. And so now we're talking here about polypharmacy from people when one system is actually being affected. But I tell that to my colleague who's not educated in this. I'm a heretic. He is an orthodox medical practitioner. Yeah. Orthodox, lovely Greek word, means right, correct. So, which is why the Orthodox Church means anyone who doesn't believe our dogma is by definition wrong. You're going to the devil. Orthodox medicine, if you're not prescribing the way we tell you to prescribe as an Orthodox doctor, you are wrong. And what then happens is we get regulatory bodies like APRA looking at us more closely because, you're not following the pattern. So look at COVID, for example. Let's check that. Oh, no, you shouldn't say that. The government says this. If you don't say that, you're going to lose your license. So we're forced into compliance. So on the one hand, the education is lacking, or it's just too much of the pharmacology. And we are forced into prescribing like a peer group. In fact, we're measured against a peer group. Too much of this, we'll investigate this. You're not following the statistical norms. And so they'll say, you have to be very, very careful, Brian, because you're actually a drug-addicted doctor yourself. You're prescribing cannabis. Are you serious? And so I now, by definition, am a heretic, because I'm unorthodox. You could call it alternative. You could call it just healing. Just getting people better. Because I'll let you into another secret. Wellness, the prevention of untimely falling ill, isn't taught at all in medical schools. We get one lecture, if that, on nutrition. One. Your granny knows more than your doctor about nutrition. And so here we are, and I'm prescribing now for these patients. I've got a large collection of them. Giving medical cannabis, yes, I may need to give other medicines as well. But what I'm doing is I'm actually doing this a different way. I'm addressing the underlying problem and seeing what happens with that. Is it a universal panacea? Hell no. If I give a reasonable dose of medicinal cannabis, whether in gummy form or oil form or the dried herb form, it's all, I can use this scientifically. What terpenes do you need? What kind of minor cannabinoids do you need? Which reminds me, if you ever listen to Jim Connell, he's a fantastic repository of huge information on the minor cannabinoids when it comes to treating cannabis. And Alex Wodak was saying earlier about how we've had 40, 50 years of not looking at the science of cannabis. We've only scratched the surface, and what are we finding? It's a wonderful healing herb, which is currently banned, really. Even if you're getting a prescription, you can't drive your car because you'll be impaired, even if you're not. So we're dealing here with the stupidity of a political body stuck in the status quo, determined not to move. So determined, in fact, that right now I am being investigated by APRA, by Department of Health, and by the TGA, because I'm prescribing what the patients need, not what the regulations say I should do. Now, I checked with the chief pharmacist. It's great being a politician because I can ask for a briefing from the chief pharmacist of the Department of Health. So up she fronts, and she knows me, because I've interviewed her before in a very aggressive manner. And I said, look, tell me, this idea about 30 grams maximum limit for cannabis. And before I could ask the question, she says, yes, I know, she says, there's no scientific basis for it. Zero scientific basis for a limit that she's applied Department of Health. Think about that for a moment. We've now got the chief pharmacist telling doctors what they can or cannot prescribe based on absent or faulty science. And the body of doctors, in Western Australia at least, accepts that and says, yes, ma'am, we'll carry on. Just imagine how many heretics we need in the medical practitioner society to change our sickness system into a health system. Because each one of us, in some way or other, is suffering less wellness than we could have because we're being treated by a sickness system, not a health system. And so what I'm putting forward here in the non-medical context, the medical facts I've laid out here, I could bore you with the science, but the science is fascinating. We'll not do that just now, shall we? But what I can say is, speaking as a man of science, is that when you look beneath the bonnet of the medical cannabis and look at the science, it blows your mind. You don't need to get high in cannabis or anything else. Just read the science. You'll be in space. It is awesome. And at the same time, we're being told, no, it's a dangerous drug. You can't prescribe this because it's actually an addictive drug. Here, let's have another gin and tonic. Yes, I don't, but... And you smoke? Okay, fine. Okay, we've got 9,000 deaths due to alcohol since 2021. 24,000 deaths every year due to smoking. 800 deaths due to the prescribed opioids. In fact, there's between 16 and 18,000 annual early deaths due to properly prescribed medication, properly administered. And the TGA since 1971 has documented just 501. We are living in a system which must be reformed. And how do we reform that? Well, not by writing to politicians, because they don't give a shit. They really don't. They get told what to do by their bodies, and they've got to obey that, or they lose the chance of promotion, becoming a minister at some stage. They are bound in a system which is deeply, deeply unhealthy, and it's being propagated by the neoliberal approach we have here, where the transnationals can actually buy the legislation that we're putting through, that I'm actually allowing to pass through the upper house. So to some degree, I'm a little bit guilty, okay, although I can have a voice. Now, of course, I don't know if you know the story, but in Western Australia, the TAC driving, I wanted so much to come here with the news. And the news was, back in February I heard, after 5 years in Parliament, the government is prepared to change the THC driving laws in Western Australia. They have declared that privately behind the chair. We're not allowed to know this, but they're going to do it. That was in February. And in March, nothing. And in April, nothing. And we asked. And finally, when I heard that Minns is proposing something similar in New South Wales, I threw my dummy out of the pram. And I've now told the Western Australian government, the Labour government, not one single bill that you put through the upper house is going to have my support, even if it's manifest common sense. Because you have actually slapped me in the face. You've treated me and the people I represent and the truth and the science behind it with contempt. And until you change this, stop. Now, you might say, well, a minor party, what can we do? But I am now the old man of the crossbench, and I have some influence there. The Greens are pissed off. The numbers in the upper house for the government are scanty. They don't have a majority. They need the Greens, or they need the crossbench to get stuff through past the opposition. They're in a world of pain at the moment, and they know it. So they're going to pay the price of actually having treated us, all of us, with contempt. So I'm a heretic. I'm proud to stand by it, and I'll be a heretic until the day I die. I'll put out the words of Martin Luther, not King, Martin Luther at the church in Erfurt. Now, you have to understand, Martin Luther wasn't actually a good man at all. He was quite a nasty man. However, what he said was quite true. Here I stand, as he nailed the thesis to the door of Erfurt Cathedral. Here I stand. I can do no other. And only when we are there with complete confidence in our sense of what is right can we do that. Here I stand. Here we all stand. We can do no other.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Whoa. We are running short of time. We've maybe got time for one question. Otherwise, don't do the window opportunity is a very short one.
If we go to www.brianwalkermlc and look at the TGA data on there, is that what you said?
That's what I said.
www. What's the Tell me again.
www.brianwalkermlc, all one word, .com.au.
Excellent. Go there. Go there. A good space
yes,
to get lost in.
Questions? Hi. Can you just...
Just give the microphone to you.
Yep.
Here's one we prepared earlier.
If there's no question just now, I wanted just to give a word, if I may, and that is, well, I say this all the time. People look at what I do and say, thank you, you're putting yourself out there, that's true. And everyone who is in the same position, all of our politicians, all of those who are taking active part in this, it's not enough. We need to stand together, because each one of us is a soldier in this army, each one of us. We've all got a role to play. We're not all in the same category. It's like in the armed forces. You're not going to do a full frontal attack, everybody. The special forces there, the paratroops there, the Navy's going to be doing that. It's all specialists doing things at a certain time, certain way. We need to stand together as a people with all of our separate skills and give them hell.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Well said.